we continue to dive into this latest statement by President Trump because it has been confirmed. I would just want to make sure to keep underlying that to you. This is not just something President Trump is saying based off discussions on the news. He was specifically briefed by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. A spokesperson for that office confirmed that happened on Tuesday evening, that there was a briefing, and that the intelligence officials have identified continued and coordinated attacks that have heightened in the past few months, and law enforcement officials across all agencies are trying to ensure President Trump is protected and the election is free from interference. These are real and specific threats from Iran to assassinate President Trump in an effort to destabilize and sow chaos in the United States as we prepare for, of course, an election, which we are getting closer to. And people are already starting to vote in more and more states every single day, Will, which is, again, I think people have seen, they've seen the way President Trump is having to give public remarks with the bulletproof glass around him. Right. And also the idea that this is an ongoing threat, not just to, again, when you're a current president, you can really shift things up security-wise. But when you're running for office as a former president or current vice president, you have to get out there to the people. That's right. And one of the narratives I've seen kind of from the left is Trump isn't doing as many rallies as he did in previous elections. Well, I wonder why. Because this is the most important time. But what's happened at one of a major rally in Pennsylvania, in a battleground state? There was an assassination attempt. And then there was a second assassination attempt. And he has heightened security now. I wonder why there aren't as many rallies happening. Exactly. That's the ones that the security world and intelligence world can't hide from the American people. I don't think it would be good for the country probably to know how many of these get to a certain point. Like they say, these are real, these are specific threats, and that have been prevented because of that, from getting from the idea of being a real and specific threat to one that is, on scene, that has to be prevented, by an agent who's actually with President Trump. That's a different situation. But I think we're living in a time period again where, yes, President Trump's security has been increased. The real enemies of the United States are being identified very clearly. And I think if you're, again, people are thinking about who to vote for. The fact that Iran is going to these steps potentially to prevent President Trump from returning to office. Why? Because Hezbollah and Hamas would have no resources. There would not have been October 7th because Hamas wouldn't have had drones. And they would not have had the backing of a country that had billions of dollars in reserves now because of your taxpayer dollars going straight to the Islamic Republic of Iran. With Hezbollah, the same idea. Now, I think Israel has decimated a lot of Hezbollah leadership and even members of their army. The question is, what happens if Israel and the IDF decides that we're not only having to fight in the Gaza Strip, but we're going to have to take this battle into, now that's a word specifically, with boots on the ground, into Lebanon. We've seen those operations before. I have close friends who are in the IDF who have fought in wars with Hezbollah on the ground, and I will tell you, it is next level. It is different than even Hamas in the West Bank, in the way Hezbollah is trained, in the way they operate. But they are an international warfare organization tied to a terrorism group. They are terrorists, but they are an international warfare organization. They operate all over the world, Will, and including, they fought ISIS, right? Because there were interests that Iran had as well, because ISIS was a radical Sunni group. What has been interesting is that Hamas used to be a radical Sunni group, but they have turned to receiving this funding from Iran now and being basically an Iranian proxy, even though most of the membership of Hamas have Sunni backgrounds. Many of these Palestinian radicals, religion is not their number one issue. That's why Hamas is not a religious name in nature. It's the Islamic, it's the Islamic resistance movement, but it's not the army of God as Hezbollah is. I mean, you hear the word Allah is in their name. Right. And when you talk about Iran and the strength that they have to be able to fund these groups abroad, that's what gives these
specific threats, specific and ongoing threats to President Trump, even more concern should be for the American people, is that this is a foreign power that has an intelligence service that has, and now they aren't as good as, let's say, Mossad or the United States intelligence service, but they still have resources that a lone wolf trying to take out a president that's radicalized by the words and things that they hear. These are governments that have resources to try to carry this out. We know that Iran has tried to assassinate Saudi officials on U.S. soil in Washington, D.C. And this is also concerning because the interim report on the Secret Service response in Butler, Pennsylvania, came out this morning as well. And this is a bipartisan report. This is from the Senate doing their interviews. We know that we saw Senator Blumenthal talking about how astonishing and shocked Americans.
Senator Blumenthal. I mean, this is a very partisan left Democrat who is pretty nasty when it comes to going after President Trump and conservative Republicans, but still an American. And when he got that briefing, said he was absolutely shocked.
And in this interim report, so this isn't even the final report, they say that the planning failures preceding the first assassination attempt on former President Trump were, quote, foreseeable and preventable. They went in to all of the failures, whether no one had clear roles. There was supposed to be a drone flying over, scanning the area. The drone operator wasn't properly trained and was having issues, so much so that he called the toll-free number on the drone to try to get tech support during this entire unfolding situation. So while I am appreciative of Congress showing the bipartisan vote, approving more funding and security for the Secret Service and applying the same levels to all major party candidates, what it is concerning to me is when these are the failures, does money put a Band-Aid on the failures? Because delegation of responsibilities, ensuring coverage of a building, to me, that doesn't sound like something that money fixes. It sounds like an institutional problem that they also need to be getting to the bottom of. And while I'm thankful there's more funding and more resources for the Secret Service to be able to protect the former president, it also concerns me when it's a government that has more resources, that has a very serious, ongoing, specific threat, is what we're hearing, that the Secret Service has the ability right now to handle that.
Yeah, and I think that we have learned, too, is that the government, especially these security agencies, have got to modernize with the times, with the fact that our enemies are also using the new technology that our military has, that they're utilizing it to some extent, maybe in a more crude way, but they are able to utilize it too. So the threat is different. The way to deliver potentially deadly assassination attempts is not just people with guns, though that is what we've seen it most recently, and that is what is in our history that has been prevalent. But you've got, of course, drones, and you've got serious technology and planning that can go into things, and the way to communicate is different. So I think all of that, the level of sophistication from especially Iranian-backed assassins who've got significant resources, unfortunately, because of the United States of America's decision to allow them to start doing more business in the world and not sanction the countries that are doing business with Iran in a serious way so that Iran is able to sell its crude oil. Also, delivering Iran those hundreds of millions of dollars the U.S. had frozen that had decimated Iran's domestic economy to the point that during the Trump administration, what we mostly saw from Iran, was people in Iran protesting because they could not afford basic necessities. And if people, we always say this, if people don't have bread, they're not so focused on let's go to war with Israel. They're more focused on taking out their own government, because that is the key. If people can't eat, they are not going to deal with you spending your resources trying to, in the minds of most Iranian people, I'm sure, try to deal these military blows against an enemy that seems so far away to the everyday person.